Good evening, my fellow scientists. It is Monday, December 4th, 2017, and I want to talk about self-experimentation. And this is not as naughty as it sounds. This is just the idea that scientists have taken it upon themselves to try experiments on themselves in order to avoid ethics questions that would arise if they tried to experiment on someone else. Famously, the cause of stomach ulcers was determined by a self-experimenter. A scientist said that he thought these bacteria were the cause of stomach ulcers, and the community said, no, that's ridiculous, it's stress. He said, no, it's these bacteria, and I will prove it. He cultured the bacteria, he drank them, and got ulcers, and then cured those ulcers with some antibiotics. So this was a famous case. I've talked also about cases where scientists flew to South America and had electrodes installed in their brain in order to do some brain-machine interface experiments. Probably not the safest or wisest way to conduct experiments, but if you can't get this sort of institutional review and support and ethical okays to run an experiment, well, one option that obviously I do not advocate is to try an experiment on yourself. And I've seen this to some extent, not at my current university, but I have seen an individual paint himself with a protein he expressed in the lab in order to make himself glow green so that he could go to a dance party. So that happened. Not super wise, but amusing. We all wondered if he was going to have an allergic reaction, but he didn't. Those kinds of biohacking home experiment that people sometimes do, there's a level of risk that you have to determine and say if you're comfortable with. And if that risk isn't shared by your institution or by your colleagues, then I think you can make an argument that it's ethical. Not that I would advocate such a thing, because obviously I don't. What gets a little weird is when we as a society choose to try and experiment on ourselves at large. And we're doing a lot of those. And one of the things that brought this up to me was an article in Vanity Fair about how we are essentially running a psychological experiment upon ourselves by engaging as much as we do with social media. We are testing to see what effect that's going to have on us and what effect that's going to have on the culture. Of course, there are deliberate experiments such as the ones that Facebook has run on its users without their knowledge or consent to see what is going to work advertising-wise and what is going to influence people in elections. That happened. I'll leave a link in the description. But what about the more benign, just this sort of, I'm going to see what happens. Will I be happy or not if I engage with clicks and likes and so forth? These sorts of experiments are the same kinds of experiments that people have played with for gambling. I'm going to see if it makes me happy to gamble, except that these are new, and we're playing this experiment in a context without fully recognizing that it is an experiment. And I'm not 100% comfortable with that. So the Vanity Fair article kind of talks about how this experiment could go wrong. I'm not sure that it will or would or has to, but I think maybe the world could do a little better at recognizing when we are experimenting upon ourselves instead of business as usual. In any case, I will be back tomorrow talking about the iron battery. So if you're interested in that, please tune in. We update Monday through Friday. We talk about experiments and science and chemistry and all manner of fun things that I find interesting right here in the Allen.